Well, welcome to the sermon for the third Sunday in Lent, March 7th, 2021. This sermon is based on John's Gospel. It's John 2, verses 13 to 22. It's John's account of Jesus' cleansing of the temple. This is a really important story, and so I invite you to read that in John's Gospel. If you haven't done so already, just pause the video and we'll resume with the sermon in just a moment. I called the sermon this week The Angry King, mostly because I just happened to see a Burger King advertising campaign promoting their burger, which is called The Angry King. Presumably, the burger has some heat to it, kind of like Jesus in John's Gospel today. All four Gospels have this story about Jesus cleansing the temple of exploitative practices. Matthew, Mark, and Luke have it as the very last action of Jesus' public ministry. In other words, it's the thing that finally drives the authorities to do something about Jesus. So, for example, in Mark and in Luke, it is after he cleanses the temple that the authorities look for a way to kill Jesus. It's the thing that tips them over the edge in their desire to do something about Jesus. So it's an action that precipitates a very drastic response from them. In John's Gospel, though, the cleansing of the temple is placed at the very beginning of Jesus' public ministry, right after the wedding at Cana, as if these two actions, celebration on the one hand and confrontation with injustice on the other, set the stage for all that is to follow. In any event, the cleansing of the temple is clearly a very important piece of Jesus' ministry. It either sums up his ministry, as in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, or it sets the stage for all of Jesus' ministry that follows, as here. Now, what makes Jesus angry here is the exploitative temple practices of the time. Jesus is a faithful Jewish person, and he simply cannot abide the injustice of what is happening at the temple, at the beloved temple. Now, what you need to know is that animal sacrifices were part of temple worship. People sacrificed animals when something good happened to them as a thank offering to God, or people sacrificed animals when they did something bad as a forgiveness offering. Either way, they needed animals, and animals could conveniently be purchased at the temple. However, the usual currency of the day, the thing that people carried around in their money purses, were Roman coins. And Roman coins could not be used in the temple because the coins had images of the emperor on them, and graven images were not allowed in the temple precincts. Therefore, before one entered the temple, you exchanged Roman coins for temple coins that could be used to purchase the animals for sacrifice, and that you could pay the temple tax with. Now, at Jesus' time, however, the temple was run by authorities chosen by Rome. Now, the temple system was a source of income and revenue for the Roman Empire. It was heavily taxed by Rome, and a high percentage of the money raised by exchanging the coins and selling the animals, as well as the temple tax, went to Rome. And it could be very expensive for a sincerely religious person to do this, and it went to, obviously, the bank account of an empire that was oppressing you and occupying your own country. The high markup and the practice of exploiting sincerely religious people was more than Jesus could take. Jesus loses his mind in this episode, right? And he explodes in righteous anger against the injustice of it all. We see the angry king today in opposition to Rome and its unjust practices. Now, a couple weeks ago, we noted how clearly you can see in Mark's gospel that Jesus is portrayed in a great showdown, right, with the powers of evil that prevent human flourishing. There's a great conflict that Mark outlines for us between Jesus and the reign of God and all the forces that oppose that reign of healing and wellness and well-being. But you can see this in John's gospel too, very clearly, even though John's gospel is very different from Mark's gospel. This showdown is clearly what gets Jesus killed in all of the gospels. Jesus runs afoul of the temple authorities, and hence he runs afoul of Roman authority. Rome, as we know, simply will not tolerate any opposition to its rule, and so ultimately they will crucify Jesus. But Jesus speaks to that very directly in the story today, right? Jesus says, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Now, the temple authorities are perplexed by this, and that is kind of a strange thing to say. However, John helpfully adds this little explanatory note, right? Jesus was speaking about the temple of his body. Well, that might not be so helpful either, except that we know in the New Testament, when Jesus or other writers refer to Jesus' body, they're speaking about the church. We now are all members of Christ's body and individually members of it, says Paul. Jesus' body is the church. On the third day, Jesus says, "I will raise it up." And what happens on the evening of the third day in John's gospel? Jesus appears to his disciples and breathes his spirit into them. The church now is quite literally, in some way, Jesus' physical body on earth. Well, that body of Jesus for 2,000 years has been at its best when it lives in opposition to injustice, perhaps sometimes like Jesus, when it is fueled by righteous anger. Jesus certainly could get angry. We know that from many other accounts. Jesus had a short fuse. Sometimes he simply gets frustrated with his followers, and sometimes, like today, he loses his mind over injustice. Anger, however, is not Jesus' base emotion. We know that Jesus' base emotion is compassion. Sometimes, though, as in today's story, the flame of his love for people seems to be ignited by the spark of anger. Well, I think we can take away from this that it is okay for certain things to make us angry, and maybe certain things should make us angry. It is okay for injustice to make us angry. It is okay for racism and sexism and heterosexism to make us angry. It is okay for poverty and hunger and exclusion to make us angry. But we must always let our base emotion, which is deep compassion, guide us into action. We are Jesus' body. You know, every week at First Lutheran Church building, Melinda and I welcome people to our door. They come and they ring the doorbell, and we attend to their needs in any way that we can. Sometimes the situations they present us with make us angry, but we respond in love. So in our way at First Lutheran Church, we are still caught up in the same showdown Jesus was, the showdown between forces of prejudice, poverty, and injustice, and the forces of the loving reign of God on the other hand. So we battle hunger with love when people are invited to food bank or given emergency food. We battle poverty with love when we employ local neighborhood people for the upkeep of our grounds, which we do. We battle racism with love when we advocate for and walk alongside with those who experience prejudice, as we do. We battle exclusion with love when we live up to our inclusive welcome statement and walk alongside those journeying through the valley of hate and misunderstanding. We battle war and its ravages with love by sponsoring refugees and supporting them when we arrive, as we made a new venture to do just last Sunday once again. In all this, we talk little, we listen much, and in the immortal words of Francis of Assisi, we preach the gospel at all times, using words if necessary. I mean, the things that confront us may spark anger, but they are best opposed with love. In John's Gospel, Jesus may be angry today, but next week, and in just a few short verses from this story, we will see how Jesus too confronts that which opposes him with love. For we will read this. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish but may have fullness of life. Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. So may it continue to be for us who are the temple of his body. Amen. Thank you for joining me, friends. If you'd like to today to maybe go and see what I have to say to the children about this, mostly I sang a song written by Mr. Rogers called "What Do You Do with the Mad That You Feel When You Feel So Mad You Could Bite," which probably Fred Rogers had in mind this story when he wrote the song. I don't know, but likely he did. Okay, be well. Please give us your feedback on this and on all our other materials that we're preparing online these days. We long for the day when we can all be together, but until then, be safe, and thank you again for taking the time. Bye-bye.